Listen up, Bears Nation, because we have a major situation developing at Hollis Hall that you need to hear. We spent big money this offseason, but some of those massive deals are already looking like potential disasters before the season even kicks off. From injury concerns surrounding our secondary to serious questions about our pass rush production, the front office might have made a costly gamble. Are we looking at 2 contract busts that could derail our 2026 defensive goals? I'm breaking down the red flags right now. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Let's dive in. The Chicago Bears are facing significant scrutiny regarding the financial commitments made during the 2025 offseason, specifically concerning 2 high-profile deals that experts now identify as potential liabilities. As we move deeper into the 2026 season, the contracts handed out to defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo and defensive back Kyler Gordon have come under the microscope for all the wrong reasons. These 2 players were expected to be cornerstones of the Chicago defense, yet their current status suggests their deals may age poorly. The organization invested heavily in these athletes with the expectation of elite production. But the reality on the ground in 2026 paints a far more concerning picture. For Kyler Gordon, the primary issue is a persistent inability to stay on the field, which has become a recurring theme in his professional career. Despite signing a significant 3-year, $40 million extension, Gordon is already starting the season behind schedule. Having missed substantial time last year, his unavailability during the recent offseason program, including both OTAs and mandatory minicamp, has left the coaching staff in a difficult position. The lack of participation is preventing the necessary development of trust between the player and the team. Simultaneously, the contract signed by Dayo Odeyingbo is raising red flags due to his limited production and serious health concerns. With an average annual value of $16 million, the expectations for his performance were high, yet his recent track record shows a sharp decline in efficiency. The combination of these 2 massive financial obligations creates a unique challenge for the team as they look to maintain a competitive defense. Every snap and every missed practice now carries extra weight for the Chicago front office and the dedicated fans who expect the team to bear down. Kyler Gordon is currently the subject of intense focus because of his durability issues and his recent absence from team activities. The 3-year, $40 million deal he secured represents a significant portion of the salary cap, yet his history of missing games is casting a long shadow over his future with the franchise. Last season, Gordon was limited to just 3 appearances due to injuries, continuing a frustrating trend where he has yet to participate in more than 15 contests in any single season. The situation has reached a point where head coach Ben Johnson has publicly expressed his clear dissatisfaction with the cornerback's inability to remain active. When speaking about the lack of availability, Johnson highlighted the difficulty of building a professional relationship when the player is consistently sidelined. For a coaching staff that relies heavily on team trust, Gordon's recurring absences represent a failure to establish the foundation required for success. This matters right now because the team is trying to integrate new defensive schemes, and the slot corner position is pivotal to that vision. Without Gordon on the field, the coaching staff cannot properly assess his fit or his development within the system. The frustration expressed by the team indicates that his presence is not just a statistical requirement, but a fundamental part of the team's operational goals. Because trust is explicitly mentioned as a core requirement by the coaching staff, his absence is creating a rift that cannot be fixed by talent alone. The financial commitment to Gordon was designed to secure a reliable piece of the secondary, but instead, it has resulted in a precarious scenario where the team is paying for a player who cannot demonstrate his value during the critical months of spring preparation and early season development. While Kyler Gordon struggles with injury, Dayo Odeyingbo is under equally intense pressure to justify his massive $48 million 3-year contract. The decision to commit $16 million annually to a defensive end who tallied just 3 sacks in his previous campaign was questioned from the moment it was announced. The situation deteriorated further during his most recent stint, where he managed only a single sack over 8 games before a torn Achilles brought his season to a premature end. This specific injury is historically difficult to overcome, and the concern is not just about the financial terms, but the physical reality of his 2026 performance. As he attempts to return, there is a tangible possibility that Odeyingbo will not regain the explosive speed or power that earned him his initial deal. In the competitive environment of the NFL, a lack of consistent sack production is a luxury that few teams can afford, especially when the player is occupying such a large percentage of the salary cap. The pressure on him to perform is compounded by the fact that he is entering this season with significant physical limitations. If he cannot effectively impact the pass rush, the financial allocation becomes increasingly difficult to justify. His inability to provide pressure on the quarterback directly impacts the effectiveness of the entire defensive unit, as the team needs reliable production from their marquee free agent signing. For the organization, the realization that this investment might fail is a major hurdle. The combination of the Achilles recovery and the lack of historical production makes his contract one of the most scrutinized deals of the 2026 season. It is a critical moment for the defensive line, as they depend on Odeyingbo to be the primary threat off the edge. The connection between Kyler Gordon and Dayo Odeyingbo is the central theme of this defensive dilemma, as both players are failing to meet the expectations attached to their respective contracts. When we analyze why this matters for the team in 2026, it becomes clear that the margin for error in the secondary and on the defensive line has essentially vanished. With two of the most significant earners underperforming or unavailable, the team is forced to rely on depth pieces who may not have been prepared to take on such substantial roles. The trust issues explicitly mentioned by head coach Ben Johnson regarding Kyler Gordon suggest that even when he does return, he may have a significantly shorter leash. This translates to a high-pressure environment for any player attempting to reestablish himself within the rotation. For Dayo Odeyingbo, the stakes are equally high. His contract structure and the severity of his injury suggest that if he fails to make an immediate impact, the team could face a total loss on their investment. These situations are not just about individual failure, they are about the structural health of the roster. The team spent the offseason looking to bolster their defensive front and their secondary, but the reliance on two players with such questionable reliability is now directly limiting their potential. As the season progresses, the lack of depth will be exposed if these players cannot prove their worth. The financial burden is heavy, and the performance gap is widening. Every game without a contribution from these two high-priced assets puts more stress on the remaining defensive starters, who must play more snaps to compensate for the missing production and the inability of these players to stay on the field or perform at an elite level. Moving forward into the remainder of the 2026 season, the focus remains squarely on whether Kyler Gordon and Dayo Odeyingbo can reverse these troubling trends. The narratives surrounding both players have moved beyond simple speculation and into the territory of potential long-term failures. For Kyler Gordon, the path forward requires an immediate return to full health and a demonstration that he can regain the trust of Ben Johnson and the coaching staff through consistent availability. Without that, his future in the secondary remains clouded by doubt and the specter of his massive contract being labeled a mistake. Similarly, Dayo Odeyingbo is fighting against the physical limitations of his recovery and the statistical evidence that his career-high production is behind him. The team's commitment to these two players was intended to solidify their defense, yet it has instead become a bottleneck that could hinder their overall efficiency. The reality for the team is that they have tied their fortunes to two individuals who are currently struggling to prove their utility on the gridiron. While the organization continues to manage these assets, the fans and the media are watching closely to see if the investment will ever yield the expected results. The pressure to produce is mounting, and the time for excuses has passed. If these contracts are indeed confirmed as total failures, the team will have to reckon with the financial and competitive consequences of these decisions. Whether it is through a return to form for both players or a potential shift in roster strategy, the situation regarding these two athletes is far from resolved. Their ability to deliver on the field is now the only factor that will prevent these deals from being viewed as the primary reason for the team's defensive struggles.